Better Morning. I'm Heather Klein. We debate the trending topics in sports from a sports betting point of view. Let's welcome today's panel. Award-winning host, the fantasy exec, Corey Carson.
Thank you very much.
Host of Her Story in the Making, Britt's Fantasy Blitz, and co-host of Lightning Round. Britt Flynn, Fantasy Alarm lead NFL analyst and host of Fantasy Fiasco, Andrew Coop Cooper. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Glad to be here this morning. Good morning, Coop. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning, dude.
Oh my God.
Beautiful Friday
Corey, we've
morning.
established this.
We've established what, Britt?
Never mind.
Oh.
Britt, was it the Britt not Brittany? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, did I say Brittany? I'm sorry. Excuse me, Britt.
You love to push buttons, Corey.
I'm not pushing no buttons. I'm saying excuse me.
The trick, Britt, is to have a first name that no one ever says, because they just call you by your last name. Then you don't have to worry about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Coop.
Like Coop, yeah, it's much easier that way. You should try that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get to it.
Sure.
Giants tight end Darren Waller is being talked about a lot in fantasy football and are targeting him for their team outside, of course, Chiefs Travis Kelce. In training camp, reporters covering Giants training camp, repetitive, are already buzzing with news that Daniel Jones is enjoying his partnership with their new tight end, and in fact are giving Waller a little rest because Daniel Jones loves targeting him and that Waller is a matchup nightmare. His current ADP is a tight end 7. Are you high on Waller this season, and what do you expect from him this upcoming season? Britt, you're up first.
Yeah, I'm really high on him from a talent standpoint, and I truly believe that he can lead the entire team in targets. At his ADP, you can afford to take that injury risk because it's kind of already built in. We didn't have that last season with Christian McCaffrey as he was going in the first round, but in the late 4th to late 6th, depending on which site you play on, especially at tight end, you can definitely afford to take Waller there. I will say if I do take him, I'm taking a high upside later round tight end as kind of injury insurance. But with the state of the Giants wide receiver room, Waller could realistically have over 100 targets. And Daniel Jones is already showing his preference towards Waller. And I know that it's early in training camp, but it's definitely promising. Tight ends are kind of a toss-up outside of Kelce, so taking Waller makes much more sense than anyone else in this range.
Yeah, Waller very well could, and Britt was spot on that one. Waller very well could be 100 target guy, Giants lead wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? My tight end strategy this year, though, I'll probably get 2 of that top 9. I say top 9 and not top 10 because I'm never drafting David Njoku again. So that top 9, kind of ends with that in that range of where you get Evan Ingram and Pat F out there in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I like Darren Waller. I think he's a good guy to get out there. I'd rather get 2 of those top 9. You know what I'm saying? Not just one of them. And I think Waller can be that guy. I've got Waller in some early drafts already. I'm in on Waller. I think he can bounce back.
Let me tell you guys a little something about Darren Waller. Ever since Antonio Brown froze his feet off and brought a fake helmet to practice, this guy's been the focal point of an offense, right? Which very few tight ends have been. This guy has a 200-yard game on his resume. This guy has 3 15-plus target games on his resume. And now he gets to go to a team where he can once again be the focal point of his offense. This is a guy who had the second most end zone targets per game last year behind only George Kittle. He's a converted wide receiver that runs real high A dot routes. And on top of all that, he might have the best smile in all of football. Wow. What is not to like about Darren Waller?
Pause.
Well, I think the concern that people have over Waller is that same thing that we hear year after year, right? Like he hasn't played 2 full seasons. He's injury prone. He's on the downside of the age apex, blah, 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 blah. But with Waller, and especially what we've seen with Daniel Jones, they took him off the field yesterday. And some say that it was just for him to take a breather. But the person watching was like, no, they wanted him to focus on other targets, other receiving targets, because all Daniel Jones was doing was throwing the ball to Waller. They've already built that connection. I mean, if that connection is starting this early on in training camp, I think he's got a great possibility of finishing in the top 3.
Wan'Dale Robinson has a torn up knee. Jalen Hyatt's a rookie. Isaiah Hodgins only has 2 good games on his entire career, and they were both versus the Vikings, who have a terrible secondary. They have 17 slot guys like Paris Campbell and Cole Beasley and Sterling Shepard and another 8 guys that don't threaten me at all. This guy is the top dog. We're talking about only Kelsey and Andrews essentially lead their team in targets, and that's why I have Darren Waller ranked as my tight end 3. All I care about is upside at this position. The difference between tight end 7 and tight end 11 last year was 7 points. The year before that, the difference between tight end 8 and tight end 11 was 1 point, less than 1 point. So you can find the Corey Parson range guys. They're lying all over the ground. Give me anybody that has a chance to have difference making upside. Darren Waller's that. If he sucks, then I'll just go and pick up tight end 13 or 14. They're right there.
The problem with Waller is his motor runs low sometimes, where he can kind of be like, I'm not feeling it today. I don't think that's going to happen in the new city, so I'm not worried. And all this talk about running backs not getting paid, now this is a position that doesn't get paid. Travis Kelce is essentially a wide receiver. He doesn't make wide receiver money. Mark Andrews is a wide receiver. Kittles is a wide receiver. None of these dudes are going to make wide receiver money. They're going to get paid like tight ends. They have a legitimate beef.
Mark Andrews played 75% of his snaps at wide receiver, only blocked on 1 pass play, and he gets paid just because he's a tight end. Yeah, you know whose fault it is, and it's not Jimmy Graham's. It's Mike Gesicki. If anyone was going to successfully fight the tag, Mike Gesicki played 90% of his snaps at wide receiver, and his agent and him they didn't even try. They didn't even try. So
it's that terrible gritty.
It's that terrible. He hasn't got that in him. He hasn't got that dog in him to fight that tag.
That was secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah, that was rough, dude. Just picture him and Mac Jones grittying around in New England. That's gonna be painful, bro.
So I want to address the comment about being worried that Waller's the next Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay just is in an entirely different tier of players than Darren Waller. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. Kenny Golladay couldn't even get on the field. He was sitting on the bench when they were pushing out these other practice squad guys. They're not going to do that with Waller.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, Kenny Golladay wants to come back in this league. There's an incredibly obvious move for him to pull. I'm going to tweet about this after the show. Kenny Golladay needs to sign with the Los Angeles Rams and play with Stafford again, the one guy that he had success with, and they actually have a wide open spot at split end. Sign for nothing. Sign for nothing and prove that you can play football.
That's all the Rams got to offer. Nothing.
Nothing. Take the nothing. Take the nothing and play ball, dude. Because, if he balls out with Stafford again, maybe they'll pay him. Maybe someone else will pay him. But you can't pay him right now. So he got to do a 1-year prove-it deal for whatever he can get.
Yesterday, we discussed the AFC and how they have so many quarterback studs in the conference. In the NFC, there's not as many. Of course, Eagles' Jalen Hurts is top tier, but is there anyone else that you feel you can make power moves this season and considered to be an elite quarterback? Or you're up first.
I'll start with this one, and Jalen Hurts is the class of the conference. And you know what? I hate to say it, but it's not even close after that. Just look at him. You got the overrated interception thrower in Dallas. You got Sam Howell in Washington. You got an MVP candidate in Justin Fields in Chicago. You got Jared Goff in Detroit. We all know what Kirk Cousins is, overrated. My man Bryce Young is the class of the NFC South. And then you got a whole bunch of nobodies in the has-been. And it's Kyler Murray and whoever they're going to play out there. Washed up Matthew Stafford. Brock Purdy is 12. 2 guys I didn't mention as I was roasting these NFC quarterbacks, Jordan Love and Geno Smith. I'm really excited to see what Jordan Love is going to bring to the table this upcoming season. I think Geno Smith will flirt around and be top 5 MVP candidate when the season's over. Outside of that, the rest of those dudes in the NFC are stiffs.
Wow, you're excited about Jordan Love too, Corey. That makes 2 of us. There are literally dozens of us out there. Right? I'll say this, man. The problem here isn't that these guys aren't good or even great. It's that Jalen Hurts is just on another level. Same thing with guys like Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen has virtually identical passing stats to Kirk Cousins over the last couple of years, while also putting up rushing stats like Aaron Jones. Like, so you can't possibly take guys like Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, who are, basically the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz when it comes to rushing, and compare them to a guy like Jalen Hurts. If someone's going to step up and be on his level, it really almost can only be a guy like Justin Fields that can run at that level and potentially step up his passing game. But right now, I mean, the dual quarterback is king.
See, I'm going with Dak Prescott, and people, and I'm not going to name names, constantly talk about last season's interceptions, how he's a bum, but his completion percentage is already in the top 10 of all time. His career passer rating is higher than Tom Brady, and yet he continuously gets grief. He's got a great offensive line, he's got great weapons, and he's got a great defense. That's a recipe for success for a quarterback, and he's going to bounce back in a huge way this season, and it's going to be talked about as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC, if not in the league this year. Who else is there? Like we've mentioned, we've got old Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, Derek Carr, who's learning a new system. There's no one else with as much upside outside of Jalen Hurts in the NFC this year as Dak Prescott.
I find interesting is I disagree, but we know that already. You know what I'm saying? But what I find interesting is when Lamar Jackson was a free agent this year, teams in the NFC weren't knocking his door down to try to get him. He would have made any team in the NFC. I'm making some toast. That's why I have a knife in my hand. But he would have had any.
Corey's big man.
They taking this Dak Prescott stuff seriously, bro.
They should. Lamar Jackson would have made any of these NFC teams a contender immediately, but none of them tried to get him. I don't understand that, and I do think that this year's quarterback crop, guys like Caleb Williams, you know what I'm saying, Drake May, I think a couple of them will end up in the NFC and start to bring that quarterback stock up.
I'll tell you, Corey, if Lamar Jackson was an unrestricted free agent, there would be people at the door. But because he was a restricted free agent, you had to pay 2 first-round picks to get him. It's a pretty big expense.
Well,
was that?
You don't think he'd be worth 2 first rounders?
I think he would, but it's cost prohibitive. I mean, there were 7 different teams that couldn't possibly trade for him. Like, for instance, the Dolphins, they got their pick taken away. The Rams already traded their picks for a quarterback. The Broncos already traded their picks for a quarterback. Half these teams, you need to have 2 first-round picks to trade for to even be in the conversation. And it was I remember seeing like 8 or 9 teams that actually surprisingly didn't even have the ammo to do it. And some of the teams that did, for instance, the Eagles, they had 2 first-round picks. There's nothing they could do about it. I mean, the Lions probably should have been in the mix, in my opinion, but that's a different story.
I think that it comes down to more about their offensive systems than it comes down to actually making a play for him. There's only a handful of teams who he would be successful in that system in, and one of them is in Chicago, who already has Justin Fields. I think they weren't going to go and spend this much draft capital to trade for a player that, for what we've seen so far out of his career, is a system quarterback. And that's why this year is going to be so important and interesting to see if he can run that 4-wide air raid that he did back in college in the pros.
I think Lamar Jackson is nowhere near a system quarterback. I wouldn't say that. Justin Fields is a system quarterback. Now, Arthur Smith's system in Atlanta would have fit Lamar Jackson perfectly. They were in on Deshaun Watson last year. Why wouldn't they have been in on Lamar Jackson this past offseason?
Because they needed to draft a running back at like 4 overall.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Last season, Patriots quarterback Mac Jones didn't have a banner year and finished with 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and a 65% completion rate. In his rookie campaign, he had 22 touchdown passes and 13 interceptions in 17 games. This season, the Pats won't have Matt Patricia calling plays, as we see the return of Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator. Do you think last season was a teaching moment for Jones? And is the OC swap enough for Mac Jones to have a comeback season? Coop, you're up first.
Tight end talk, Patriots talk. What is it, my birthday here? What a beautiful Friday.
Don't get that joke started on Twitter again.
Someone has said it's my birthday at least once every week for the past maybe 40 weeks. But anyway, Mac Jones, I'll tell you this. He needs to focus on – we all worry – the mobile QBs have kind of poisoned our minds in terms of what a QB can be. But look at Tom Brady. I'm not saying Mac Jones is Tom Brady, but Tom Brady knew his limitations, and he focused on being the best he could possibly be at what he does, which is, have the mental ability, get the ball out of his hands quickly, and be arguably the best QB sneaker of all time. Now, Jalen Hurts threatens that, but Mac Jones, we've seen him as a rookie. He had the second highest completion percentage all time behind Britt's Dak Prescott. So why can't Mac Jones this year focus on the things that he can handle and take care of and take those to the highest possible level? And I think that's possible.
See, I actually worry a little bit about Mac Jones, and I don't know if an offensive coordinator change is enough to help him. His receiving core got worse. His offensive line has huge question marks. And yesterday, news came out that his trash talk is disrespectful to the point that defensive linemen actively go after him. We can't doubt his talent or ability because he was a starter and championship winner at Alabama. But in this division, it's going to be so tough. Depending on who you ask, they have the toughest schedule in the entire league. And these pieces that they have surrounding Mac Jones don't exactly create confidence. Their team win total is only set at 7.5, and they've had sub 500 seasons 2 out of the last 3 years. Sure, Jones has room for improvement, but I don't see him taking this humongous leap forward with that surrounding cast.
I love Mac Jones this year. I think it's a big comeback year for Mac Jones. The great Marty Schottenheimer said, if you get a quarterback to perform as well in his second season as he did in his rookie season, consider that an improvement. That sophomore slump is real. And last year he went through it and he didn't have any help. He had a high ankle sprain, which is one of the worst injuries in pro sports. And then obviously he had a ton of situations with his offensive coordinator. But most importantly, we're not going to Dak Prescott him and make excuses. He was terrible last year. The best part about Mac Jones is his ability to process at the line of scrimmage, right? His intelligence is the strength of his game. The problem last year, you didn't see that at all. He threw terrible interceptions. I'd like him to bounce back this year. But listen, if it doesn't happen this year, this is it with me and Mac Jones.
I'll tell you one thing, Britt. Honestly, these defensive ends or whatever that were speaking on Mac Jones, I believe it was Calais Campbell, if they need, this little pudgy boy to trash talk him, to get their motor running, to want to go after him, then I don't know, maybe it's time to hang him up. I think that if you're a defensive end, you should be going after the quarterback regardless. What? He says something you don't like, and now you go after him just a little harder?
No, but did you read the whole article? They said that, of course, they go after everyone, but they're going after him to the point of like, we want to lay you on your ass. That kind of going after him. Not like some of these other quarterbacks who they'll hit them, they'll put him on the ground, but it's not with that vitriol that Mac Jones has directed towards him.
Sounds like a smart move by Mac Jones. Good way to collect those 15-yard penalties. Automatic first down.
Well, we know, and we know we've seen that the referees don't often offer preferential treatment to these newer, younger quarterbacks. You've got to earn your respect in the league. And sometimes those penalties that would have been penalties on, say, Tom Brady don't necessarily get called for these younger quarterbacks. So I agree with Corey. I think it's a good way to get hurt. And then you look at who he's facing. He's going to have to go against Sauce Gardner twice a year. Everybody else in this division, I would have said Jalen Ramsey yesterday prior to this injury, and it's possible that Ramsey still does start by the time that Miami plays New England. Their schedule is just so tough. They didn't really bring anybody else in, and I'm concerned about Mac.
Hey, let me tell you about this AFC East. Yesterday, I placed a wager on the Buffalo Bills not to make the playoffs. I think that culture is broken in Buffalo. You know what I'm saying? I really do. Anytime it's been this long since the end of that game, and the quarterback and number one wide receiver, it's something else going on inside that locker room. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm fading Buffalo this year. Maybe I'm fading them too much, but I'll be honest with you. I'm starting to think the Jets are a team that could possibly be in the AFC Championship. And I didn't think I would ever say that in my life.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I will say this: Sean Payton came out and he was throwing
Oh my
daggers.
God.
Did you see that? He buried Nathaniel Hackett under the floorboards at
Yeah.
Mile High, and then he, out of the corner of his mouth, decided to say the Jets are the exact, quote unquote, dream team that comes out and does too much talking in the offseason, worries too much about winning the offseason, is actually what he said, and not actually winning. So, man, Peyton, he's back, baby.
Yeah.
1 year off. He
ahead, Britt.
brought a little bit of that Booth attitude with him.
But with Aaron Rodgers taking that huge pay cut and then Dalvin Cook visiting this weekend, and then I'm going to talk about this on my show at 2 Eastern today as well. There have been rumors that Devontae Adams now wants a trade to the Jets and wants out of Las Vegas. So I think that if either of those two pieces, let alone both of those two pieces, come to the Jets, they can absolutely make a run for the AFC Super Bowl.
Oh my
Shout
God!
out to my boy.
I really do. I think that their defense is.
As a Patriots fan, I pray that Garrett Wilson is part of that deal.
Hey, let me tell you
Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, dude, the New York Packers.
That Devontae Adams rumor is courtesy of my boy Craig Carton, so shout out to him. Hey, listen up. Let me tell you something. Aaron Rodgers quit on Green Bay. This dude just gave back $35 million to the Jets. He took every penny out of Green Bay that he possibly could. I'm telling you, that NFC Championship game a couple years ago, when he didn't run on 3rd down and then they punted on 4th down, the Packers quit that game, and it was because of Aaron Rodgers. I guarantee you, and that's what made him want to get out of there. That thing's been over for a couple years now.
Yep, and he's got a fresh haircut. They had a great analogy on Good Morning Football yesterday, like the divorce, right? And then after you get divorced, now you've got this new haircut, you've got the new clothes, you've got the new friends, the new hangouts, like you're just living your best revenge life. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now in New York.
Glow up, dude.
I like that glow up, Coop. All right, let's glow up to Rival Fantasy. It's the all-in-one fantasy sports platform featuring 3 unique DFS games, which are easy to play, fun, and you can't play anywhere else. Play challenges, FantasyBook, Fantasy Bingo, plus season-long fantasy football. No huge tournaments, no huge player pools, or daunting contests that make you feel like you have no shot at winning. New users who sign up at Rival Fantasy at joinrival.com/alarm get up to a $200 deposit match and a complimentary first play voucher. Today, we are going to play FantasyBook, where you select between 2 and 5 players in Major League Baseball and currently live sport, and you determine whether a player will be over or under their assigned fantasy points. The more you choose, the more money you can potentially win. Britt, let's see who you're picking today for today's MLB action.
Yeah, so I've got a couple people here. I really do like the 2 to 5 player selection because you can kind of mitigate your risk. And I also will mention that as the NFL gets started, you don't have to pick players from the same sport. You can alternate and pick a couple players from MLB, a couple players from NFL. So that makes it fun, and it's a great way to incorporate multiple interests like we all have. But I'm going to start here with Shane McClanahan. They also have a really interesting feature with the info. They give you the fantasy points per game right here. They give you his fantasy points over the past few games, and then they give you a game log and the positional rank, which kind of does some of the research for you, right? So with Shane McClanahan, his average fantasy points per game, as you saw, are over 19. His line is set at 15.65. However, he is playing the Astros, and the Astros have one of the most batter-friendly ballparks in the MLB. McClanahan has an ERA of 0.289 on the season, but against the Astros, it's 0.359. So I think that I'm going to go with the under here, even though there is a bit of variance built in. And you see, since there's only one selection over here, you can't pick it yet, but just be patient. We'll get to it. Next, we're going to go Sonny Gray. He's going against Kansas City. Kansas City's batting average against him this year has been dismal at 0.187. He's averaging 16 fantasy points per game. At his line at 8.11, I'm going to take the over. So then now you can see that 2 selections are made. You can start making your over-under picks. Next, I'm going to go with Ronald Acuna. He's going against Adrian Hauser, who Acuna has a .500 batting average against. His line is set at close to a season average. So against the Milwaukee team, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take some low-hanging fruit next with Brady Singer. And you can see down here, any extra player that you add adds an extra multiplier to your entry. Singer has a 5.55 ERA. The Twins are batting .358 against him with a 1.14 OPS. So I'm going to take the under on his fantasy points here. Then just to make it interesting and get the most that I can get out of this bet, I'm going to go all the way down here with Cody Bellinger. Bellinger hasn't been great this season, but he is facing Jordan Montgomery, who has a 4.28 ERA. And Bellinger has a 3.37 ERA against him. So I'm going to take this over. You can see here at the bottom, 5 selections is a 10 times entry. So I'm going to take a $5 bet with the chance to win 50. I will say you have to win every single one. They don't break it down. It's an all or nothing situation. But when they give you so many tools and so much help to figure out where to go with this over under, it's kind of an easy bet for me. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Hasn't Sonny Gray been terrible?
It sounded great, been terrible.
Hasn't Sonny Gray been terrible lately? Hasn't he been getting rocked?
I just looked at his batting average against this Kansas City team. I looked at the batter versus pitcher. Yeah.
I missed it.
And also Gray, he has gone over that number in 3 of his last 4. I actually looked at Gray and Singer myself, and I like both of those plays. So good job right there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to know. See, Britt, by seeing you do it, it kind of lets me know that I was on the right path. I didn't go 5 deep. You know what I'm saying? But I did have those 2 pitches, so I feel pretty good about that.
I'm just gonna copy you guys.
That's cool, and it's probably a good idea.
Trail, yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Just lean over me when we're doing the test and just
give me those coattails. Yeah, I'm like,
yeah, but it's really fun. It's really simple, really easy. I'm not the most technologically savvy person in the world by any means, and I figured it out very quickly. So it's real easy to use, real fun, good stuff.
Great for single
real
game.
Fun until Sonny Gray gets shelled.
Single game plays when you get Monday Night Football, Thursday night, obviously throughout the MLB season. So yeah, no doubt. I'm in. And I can do it down here in South Carolina, so that's even better.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of, if you're missing out in your state on parlays, this is about as close as you can get to parlay without breaking the rules, right?
That's true.
That's what I thought too, Coop. It seems very user friendly. Not too many tech things you have to worry about. It looks great, and you don't have to invest in a lot of money to get a lot of money back, right? $5 to get 50. That's a great deal.
There you go, no doubt. Hey, and full disclosure, I would love for Dak Prescott to have a fantastic season this year. I would love that.
Look at that.
I love it on a Friday.
I wanted to prove me wrong.
Heather, get us out on a good note.
All right, that was today's edition of A Better Morning. Thank you to Corey, Britt, and Coop. Make sure you check out Fantasy Fiasco with Coop at 1 p.m. Eastern and Britt's Fantasy Blitz at 2 p.m. Eastern. Have a better week.